All right, welcome to another edition of Buc What You Heard. My name is Gene. You can reach me at Super Heavyweight. You follow me, I'll follow you back. And I'm joined by my co-host, Michael Pless. How are you doing tonight, Michael?
Doing good, Gene. Glad to be back on. Another Bucks week full of outrageous fans that are, think they know everything. And hey, free agency starts next week. How about that?
Yeah. You would think it's already here. And I have two very special guests from the pewter plank. I'm going to let you guys introduce yourself, and just kind of go down the line. And whoever wants to go first, just jump on out there and tell everybody how they can get a hold of you.
All right. I am James Yarko, one of the co-experts of the pewter plank, co-host on the Locked On Bucks podcast, and you can find me on Twitter at @JYarko_Bucks or at the pewter plank. I man that, I would say 99.9% of the time. So when you guys are arguing with the pewter plank account, or if you're Chris Baker and you're giving the pewter plank account the finger, that's me.
Yeah, and I'm David Harrison. I do everything James does with him. Other than man the pewter plank Twitter account, I do man the Locked On Bucks Twitter account. I'm not as active as James is. I'm working on that. I have yet to be flipped off by an athlete, so that's my end of year goal. And I'm on Twitter as well at DH82_Bucks.
Guys, this is so crazy. I really need to get your opinion on this. Should we be sounding the alarms, or is this a false alarm? And I'm going to start with you, David.
No, I wouldn't even call it a false alarm. There's no alarms. There's no reason for anybody to be, freaking out or jumping ship, as it were, to throw a Buccaneers pun in there. I mean, it's like you were saying pre-recording. I mean, we're not even to free agency yet. Like, everything the stage is being set. There's a whole lot of stuff that's still going to go down. A whole lot of players that still have to be signed, traded. I saw a tweet earlier. Someone was referencing an NFL executive talking about, these trades we've heard of is just kind of the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more to come. So, I mean, it's the deck is being shuffled right now, right? Like it is every offseason, and it's not even close to being done yet. So there's no reason for any type of alarms, false or otherwise.
James.
Oh, panic in the streets, pandemonium, flip cars over, set things on fire. Free agency's a week away, and the front office hasn't done anything. What's going on? No, it's a lot to do about nothing. I mean, it got to the point of obnoxious, to the point of comical, that everyone is freaking out and calling for Jason Light's head because he's not making these trades, which he's been in talks in. He made an attempt to get Robert Quinn. It was something that I talked about on Locked On Bucks today. They said no, even though the Bucks' 4th round pick is better than Miami's. They said no. It takes two teams to make a trade. Same with the Michael Bennett deal. He was in on those talks. Seattle said no. Seattle turned down a great deal from New England just because they don't like New England. So, no, it's way too early to panic. I mean, we have legal tampering starting on Monday. Free agency kicks off Wednesday at 4 o'clock. We still have the draft. Everybody just chill, please.
Michael Pless.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been quite funny, to be honest. I mean, it's just these reactions have kept me entertained for sure. So I'm kind of enjoying it, but then at the same time, I'm like, where do these ideas or thoughts come from? The other guy said, James and David. I mean, just gotta stay calm. I mean, Jason Light and his staff know what they're doing. They're going to make moves. I mean, there's going to be moves to be made. There's still the draft. This team is going to get better. They're going to find ways to improve this team. They know they have to win this year, and they're going to do the best they can to improve this roster and make sure they're back on track in 2018.
Yeah, most definitely. And for me, the way I'm looking at it, I'm thinking that this team is, I don't know. If you look at it from now, moving forward, you have the draft, you have free agency, then you have the draft, then you have camp, and then you have preseason, and then you have regular season. A lot of things can happen between now and then. And as we say on Buc What You Heard every year, the roster is fluid. Anything can change. A lot of different things can happen, good and bad. I mean, case in point, nobody saw nobody saw the safety. Goodness, I just dropped his name. TJ Ward. Nobody saw TJ Ward available and drop where he did with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, even though it didn't work out. That's just an example of nobody saw that coming, and nobody could have predicted that he would be on the roster of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, when the season kicked off. So again, just a lot of stuff going on, and we don't know what the free agency board looks like for Jason Light, what he's going after as far as free agents go. We don't know what he's looking at as far as the draft goes. So a lot of different things going on here, and we have no idea what's going on. We can only see what other teams are doing. So I've taken the stance that I'm going to wait till week 6, see what they do. And then you've looked at everything from free agency up to the present at that time, and you'll be able to have a better idea of what was going on.
You and your logic. We don't need that around here.
So, when we're talking about free agency, Mike, I'm going to start with you. Who should Tampa look for in free agency?
Well, I mean, obviously, I think, you look at this free agency class, I think the offensive line, especially the interior, and you look at the secondary as well, I think those are deep positions that I expect them to be aggressive. I just put an article out today on Aaron Colvin from the Jaguars. I think he would be a good fit. Kenny Vaccaro, it's another one that I like, out of New Orleans. Defensive line, obviously, that's the big talk amongst Bucs fans. But again, there's not much out there. I think they'll go more of a depth signing like an Alex Okafor or maybe like a Connor Barwin, one of those guys to look at, to bring in depth and bring in rotation and create pressure that way. Guys that can do a year and build a solid rotation that you can keep guys fresh and keep Gerald McCoy, fresher throughout the fourth quarter. Yeah.
And I kind of want to touch on him a little bit later on in the show. I'm not going to jump on him now, but I'll get to that. And James, I want to get your thoughts on free agency. Who are some guys that you're looking at that could come right in and give this team a boost?
Well, yeah, David and I have made it no secret, and I'm going to steal one of his guys because I know he'll say it, but we're all aboard the hashtag Tremaine train. We'd love to get Tremaine Johnson on the team. Outside of that, like Michael said, it's going to be tough to find a defensive lineman in this market right now. You're going to have to focus on that in the draft. In the meantime, you can sign kind of those secondary guys and build the depth that way. But if the Bucs are going to go out and spend in free agency, I'd like to see them address the secondary. Michael also mentioned Kenny Vaccaro. We have our free agent spotlight on Vaccaro dropping Thursday morning. I actually just finished writing that up. That's a guy I would like to see. He's been somewhat inconsistent, almost Chris Conte-esque, but he has experience, is both free safety and strong safety, and we know how Mike Smith likes to be able to use his safeties in both positions, so he has that experience. He provides depth if he can't earn a starting spot. I'd love to see a guy like Dion Lewis or Jerick McKinnon come in and be part of a 1-2 punch at running back. I still want the Bucs to draft one, preferably in day 2, and not wait and draft the one running back that doesn't do diddly in the NFL. Besides that, Ryan Jensen's a guy I would like to see on the team for sure. They need help in the trenches on both sides of the ball, and in any way they can address that is going to be a big bonus. But I would say if I had to hope for one big splash signing, it would be Tremaine Johnson.
There you go. All right, and David, I want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Tremaine Johnson as well. Like James said, we're both kind of on that line, so that obviously be a really exciting signing to see for us. But going beyond that, I mean, if Tremaine Johnson proves to be too much money, or he just there's reports that he wants to stay on the West Coast and maybe play for Oakland or San Francisco, and if that's true, then Tampa may not even have a shot at it. But Kyle Fuller is another guy that I'm interested in. I know he got the transition tag from Chicago. I think Chicago really, just wants to see how interested other teams are. It's kind of weird. I think they're kind of trying to gauge what other teams see in him to see if they believe what they see, you know, if that makes sense. Because if other teams are believing his hype and wanting to pay him, then maybe they're okay, maybe he's worth the hype, or maybe we can bid him out of trying to sign their own player. I don't know. But another guy that I want to see come to Tampa, which James hates, is Jeremy Hill, running back formerly from the Bengals. I don't know. I just something about Hill. I feel like he got a really raw deal in Cincinnati. I don't think that I think after his rookie season, they kind of just expected him to keep doing it and doing it without getting any help and getting any better up front. And I don't think that was fair to him as a runner. But I think that up until the situation with his ankle injury really kind of came to a head where Marvin Lewis called him out in the press, I think he handled it well. And even that moment, he handled it well. So I think it's a young man that really should get a shot with someone. I think he would actually be a really good compliment with Peyton Barber there in the backfield, even though they do kind of look on the surface like similar type runners. I think Jeremy Hill provides a little bit more than what Peyton Barber does as far as versatility. So he's a guy. And then Justin Pugh, just an interior lineman who's hard nosed. He's a blue collar guy, a hard worker, a really good teammate from what I understand, and just a guy who get on the offensive line and kind of help secure that middle where I know we've had issues on the edges, but that middle was just way too fluid last year to really expect any consistency. So getting a guy like him in there, I think, would really kind of bring some stability to that front line.
Yeah. And again, one of the listeners was asking about Okafor. How would he fit? If you're the head coach, either any of you can answer this, how do you use him to his strength on this defense? And anybody can just jump in and answer that.
And I mean, yeah, Okafor, I think he'd just be a guy that can bring off the edge and be that third down rusher as well. You could pair him up with Spence and rush from the outside. I liked what he brought last year, and especially, him reuniting with Bernstein Buckner, who was his coach in Arizona. I just think he'd be a good fit and someone that could, bring some pass rush ability. He doesn't have to be a starter. He could just be that depth guy that you can bring off the bench and rotate in. But he also can start if you need him to be, because he's solid against the run. And, I think he'd be just a good value signing, someone that could bring in and plus you steal him away from a division rival. So that's a win-win in my eyes.
Yeah, that always is if you can stick it to a division rival, if you got a player that's still playing at a high level. And guys, I want to know what you guys think about this. And this is something that me and Michael have talked about, and I've brought this up on several occasions. When you're looking at free agents, are you looking at guys that have played at a high level for multiple years? Are you looking at what do you think about the guys that maybe they don't have the game film to back up what the money they're asking, and then a team signs them? And for me, I've been looking at players that they play at a high level. Like a good example is Calais Campbell. Calais Campbell just played at a high level in Arizona for years, and just for years on, while he was there. It wasn't like he just came on the scene and he had one good season. Is that how you're looking at free agents, or what is it that you look at when you guys are deciding, okay, this guy would be a good fit for Tampa? How are you guys going about deciding who's a good fit?
So when I'm diving into the free agent pool and trying to pick out who, we have our obvious wish list, right? Our guys like Tremaine Johnson, Ezekiel Alonso was on there before he got tagged. Le'Veon Bell was on there too, and I guess in some shades he's still on there, even though Antonio Brown, I think, took a pay cut today to try to make things work. And I don't think Antonio Brown does that without some assurances that Le'Veon's going to come back. So the splash signings are always great, right? The jersey sales and all that stuff are wonderful. But at the end of the day, and we've talked about this a lot on our podcast as well, there are a lot of key players for the Buccaneers coming up with contracts due in the next couple years. Mike Evans is the most immediate one, I think, and then Quan, Jameis. There's plenty more. Yeah, Ali Marpet's following there. So while the Buccaneers do have a lot of money right now, they don't have a lot of money when you're looking towards the future. So finding those value picks is really kind of kind of where I'm looking, kind of where I'm angling things at, and that's where guys like Jeremy Hill come out for me. I wrote earlier this month or in February on the Peter Plank when Ezekiel Anza got tagged that maybe, you know, a guy like Coney Ely or a guy like Aaron Lynch out of San Francisco could be a guy who would come in, provide a little bit of a pass rush boost. They've shown promise in the past. They're still young enough to get more ceiling out of him. And if Brenson Buckner is what everybody thinks he's going to be as a defensive line coach, he's the perfect guy to bring kind of a rejuvenation story in, so to speak, to Tampa. So guys that are going to come cheap, they've shown promise, and if Buckner can revive their careers, could end up being a really, really big steal when everything's said and done.
All right. James.
Yeah, when you look at free agents, it's a slippery slope, because if you're signing a guy who's been productive, you know, the last 3, 4, 5 seasons, chances are he's going to start to decline real early in that contract. At the same time, if you sign a guy who's only been, you know, playing at a high level for 1 or 2 years, see Michael Johnson, see Alteron Werner, you're paying them for the potential upside. And when it doesn't work, you have to cut ties. Now, the Bucs front office has been phenomenal at structuring these contracts so that they can get out from under them without any dead cap space. They didn't have to continue to pay, you know, Werner or Johnson or Anthony Collins or, you know, the guys like that. So it's such a crapshoot. It really is. So when I'm looking for free agents, I'm looking for someone that I feel can contribute, has a high ceiling and a somewhat predictable floor, and isn't going to break the bank. Like David said, the splash signings are fun, and you get the jersey sales, and you get hyped up, and you know, you make T-shirts that say #Tremaine Train on them, and you're selling them and whatever. But you still have to look at, okay, this is what we're giving him now, but next year we have to extend Mike and Ali and Quan and Donovan, and Jameis is going to get $18 billion because that's the quarterback market. And then a year past that, well, now you only have 25 guys under contract, and you got to sign 28 more, and you shelled out all this money. Now you got to sign 28 players with $20 million. It's not going to happen. There's a short game and a long game, and walking that fine line is so difficult. And that's what so many people get so angry about when those of us talk about these cap numbers that Robert Quinn was carrying. Are you going to pay him, you know, $24 million over the next 2 years? Well, that might cost you Ali Marpet. That might cost you Quan Alexander.
And you know what? On top of that, and just think about this. This guy has been injured, the last 3 years in a row?
He has not played a full season since 2014.
Exactly. And to that point, that's been the Achilles heel for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is getting some of these players in here, and they play 3-4 games and they get injured. Then they come back and they may get injured and they shut them down for the rest of the season. We've seen that time and time again, and we've continually seen that. And to me, that's where the alarms go off for me, is that when I see somebody and they've been injured, they played at a high level, then they get injured, then the next year they play maybe 6 games, maybe 8 games. Then the next year they play, and then, you know, they're just not the same after those injuries, a la Doug Martin.
Well, and that was and I'll be the first to admit it, that was my argument last year. I wrote a piece at the Pewter Plank saying these are free agents the Buccaneers need to avoid. And then I did another one, said these are free agents the Buccaneers need to pursue. On my avoid list, number 1 was Deshaun Jackson. I was worried about the money he was going to command and his injury history. He hadn't played a full season, I think, since he joined the Redskins, and I was concerned about it. Now, I was still excited when they signed him because he's an exciting player, but yet again, he didn't play a full season. So the production drop-off, you can't blame solely on Deshaun Jackson. He was out there. He was playing. You know, Jameis Winston, I love him to death, but he's not exactly a elite deep ball passer. And David and I talked about it numerous times on our shows that we didn't feel he was being utilized correctly. He wasn't being given these short slant routes that he can use his legs to take advantage. He was running either an out route or a go route. That was it. So it's a fine line, and I do not envy Jason Light and his job in trying to find these guys. And the last thing I'll say, Michael, and I'll kick it over to you, and you can throw in your opinion, is all these people that are screaming about Light not making the trade for Robert Quinn. How many of those are going to be the same Bucs fans that would be screaming about Jason Light signing another free agent bust if he had made the deal for Quinn and Quinn either got hurt or was getting over $12 million this season and didn't get double-digit sacks?
Great points.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of like, I mean, it's damn if you do, damn if you don't. I mean,
exactly.
As far as for Bucs fans, I mean, it just, that's why when I look at guys that, like you guys said, that can bring in some production, but also to get better, and look at the scheme fit too as well. I look at, guys like, I mentioned today, Aaron Colvin. He's very good in zone coverage, and Mike Smith plays a lot of zone. He's a guy that can play inside or outside, so that can come in and be a fit, but also provide solid, consistent production. Played consistently, not have injuries. So it's just value guys is what I look for mainly. Yeah, the superstars would be nice. Again, it's nice to get impact players. But like I tell Gene every week, right, players, not the best players per se, especially when it comes to free agency, because it's more so about building your depth. And that's what I look at when it comes to free, in that, consistent depth where you have a guy that can come in and be productive, and also makes the other guy better. It iron sharpens iron, and draft goes. I mean, that's where you find your superstars. That's where you find your guys that you're going to build your core around. And that's what Jason Light has done so far. You look at his last couple of drafts, I think these guys are going to continue to get better, and the Bucs really need them to get better if they want to take that next step. So about who we bring in, it's about, the guys that are already here, they have to take the next step. Jameis Winston, Noah Spence, Vernon Hargreaves, all those guys need to take their next step and become better players in order for this team to take, steps. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. And, kind of staying on the same subject, do you feel like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have enough money? I mean, as far as, when we get past free agency, you think that I know that's what Jason Light is working towards, but to keep all these guys such as Mike Evans, Ali Marpet, Donovan Smith, and I believe Quan Alexander is on this list as well. Mm-hmm. And I know Quan Alexander is he's going to command a lot of money. I mean, just what he was able to do in the Pro Bowl just boosted his stock just through the roof.
I think that Jason Light realizes that these guys are part of the young core that they have to build around. They are marquee players that have to stay in Bucs uniforms. He's going to find a way to make sure that he keeps them. Same way that they made sure that they kept Gerald McCoy under contract, Levante David under contract. There are some guys that you don't even give them the opportunity to explore other options. And I think all of these players are those kind of guys. The one exception might be Donovan Smith. We'll see what kind of season that he has this year. Maybe the Bucs sign a left tackle in free agency and they move Donovan, and maybe he excels at right tackle. We don't know. But you don't let Quan Alexander have even the slightest chance of talking to another team. You don't let Jameis Winston talk to another team, or Mike Evans, or Ali Marpet. These are cornerstone players. And Jason Light and Mike Greenberg have done phenomenal jobs of structuring these contracts in such a way that they can keep these guys. So I think part of the anger and the frustration of Buccaneers fans is not seeing the picture of we have to keep our own too. There are guys on this roster that are due new contracts. We have to make sure that we keep them for the long term. In order to do that, you have to have this money. Granted, we've had all this rollover cap for all these years. Now it's about to get used up. David made a great point a few episodes ago that Quan Alexander is a statistical comparison to Luke Kuechly. He's going to get Luke Kuechly money. Jameis Winston, when he signs his contract, is going to be the highest paid player in the NFL. That's the route that we're going. The last quarterback to sign is the highest paid player in the NFL, sans Blake Bortles, but he's not really a quarterback anyway. I'm not giving him any credit. So, the evolution of these contracts is Mike Evans, even though he's not better than Antonio Brown, he's not as good as Antonio Brown, he will make more money than Antonio Brown. That's
because
how
it's mixed up.
Exactly. Now, Odell Beckham Jr. is probably going to then sign and make more than Mike Evans, but that's the evolution. That's why we keep seeing the cap number raised across the league every year. But all this stockpiled, all this money that they put in their savings account that is rolled over is about to get used up on their own guys. So that's why there isn't the money to go out and trade for Quinn and sign Tremaine Johnson and sign Brent Grimes and sign Le'Veon Bell and sign, you can't do it. There's a business aspect that you have to look at, and that business plan is more than the 2018 season.
Guys, quick question, and there's another free agent that I've been intrigued with, and somebody mentioned it in the chat, Dontari Poe. Do you think that he's a good fit? He would be a good fit for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I love Dontari Poe to the Buccaneers. I like. That would be an amazing signing to me. I don't know. Like the Buccaneers should have gone after Poe last year instead of going after Baker. And I don't know how aggressively. Actually, was he traded or was he was signed out of the free agency pool?
He was signed.
He was signed. Okay,
yeah, free agent.
Before I got too deep into this conversation. Yeah, I mean, like I like Dontari Poe was one of my guys last year that I'd be sitting here at my desk last year saying the same thing I'm saying now, where all the splashy signings are really good. Like, if you're going to go out, to be completely honest, if it's Dontari Poe or Tremaine Johnson, I want Dontari Poe.
There you go, because those wars are won in the trenches.
Yeah,
and and it's just crazy. And I've made this comment, and you guys haven't. I'm not sure if you guys have been listening to some of the shows, but I went all the way back to 2003 and looked at all the defensive line signings that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have made.
It's a lot of signings.
And I'm just talking about the draft. I'm not even talking about free agency.
Oh, okay.
And you're talking about maybe 18 picks, and only 3 or 4 were the top 2. So to me, the cupboard's been bare for a long time.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the line has not been addressed, and that's kind of why we are in the position we are right now. Again, I was not a fan of Mark Dominic. I just wasn't. Just some of the moves that he made just really frustrated me. But normally you have players that are quality players, and you have to throw the franchise tag on. The Bucs have not had to franchise a whole lot of people. Have they ever franchised any? Anyway,
the last one was Connor Barth, as David correctly guessed when our buddy Brent Allen tweeted that out earlier.
So I mean, it's just a bad situation. And when Jason Light came into Tampa, the Bucs were not good on either side of the ball. Period. End of story. And
the cupboard was beyond bare. I mean, good heavens, we had Josh McCown at quarterback.
Yeah, and there you go. So I guess what they've done, they've Jason Light has done a good job. You look at your tight end core, you look at your franchise quarterback, you look at your linebacker core, and coming in and building around Levante David and improving that. And it's just, there's so much that needed to be done. I just realistically couldn't see it being done as quickly as people wanted it to.
No, we thought we were on the right track after a 9-win season, but you know what? And David, I'm going to give you credit again. When David went back, I think we were previewing the Jets game last season, and David went through and he broke down that 5-game win streak that we were all hyped about, and really revisionist history. Of course, hindsight's always 20/20. That 5-game win streak was not as impressive as we all thought it was at the time. They weren't beating world beaters of teams. So we were puffing our chest out, we were feeling ourselves, but in reality we weren't nearly as good as we thought we were, and we saw that with the 2017 product. So it is a process, and it's a long one. This is a rebuilding since 2003.
Yeah.
And it was something else that I mentioned. You can't sell the farm, and you can't go all in on one season, because that's exactly what we did. It's exactly what Tampa Bay did when they won the Super Bowl. They went all in on that one season, and it worked. But we lost draft picks, first round draft picks, second round draft picks. Gruden couldn't rebuild that team. They were in salary cap hell. There was nothing we could do but suffer, and we've been suffering ever since.
Yeah, and the thing is, not being able to hit on at least 3 of your draft picks,
right,
year in and year out. When you're missing on these picks, these are the foundation for your team. Yeah, you can bring in free agents to fill spots, but the foundation for your team is normally through the draft. You look at the Steelers, you look at the Green Bay Packers for just as examples of teams that correctly use the draft. And then the Bucs just have not done it, and you can see it. It's reflective right now, just what they have not been able to accomplish.
Can I throw something in? I just wanted to say on Dontari Poe, I would love him as well. I'm a big fan of him. I think he would help our run game tremendously, as far as run defense, and then be able to push that pocket would be awesome. I'd be completely fine if the Bucs just went out and signed Dontari Poe and Okafor as their free agent signings for defensive line. I'd be completely again, stealing players from division rivals and boosting our D line. I think that's the way to go. And then in the draft, you can get some more D linemen, through that avenue. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Dontari Poe. Gonna have a good market, so I mean, might be a little pricey, but I would like to get him.
Yeah. And guys, I kind of want to shift gears. I wanted to talk a little bit about the combine now that it's over, and kind of get your thoughts. Can you guys, just everybody, give me some of your standouts for the combine, and just and why and how you think they might fit for the Bucs. And David, I'm gonna start with you.
So the combine, when I watched the combine, I really looked at the offensive line heavy this year. Will Hernandez is a guy that they kind of featured on NFL Network, and I know that's always a little bit tricky because they need to provide some entertainment value, for the people that are watching, keep them entertained. But he's not a guy that I really paid much attention to before the combine, and I looked at him, and I like the way he approached everything. I watched more. Obviously, the drills are important, right? But I watched more what happened after the drills, and he was always one of those guys that when you saw him on screen, he was always motivating the guys that were coming off of a drill or about to go on the drill. When he finished the drill, he always finished hard. He looks very technically sound. I know it's a little bit easier in underwear, right? So he's a guy I definitely want to go back and watch a little bit more because, playing for UTEP, he's not going to get a whole lot of press. He's not going to get a whole lot of, national attention. So that might be a guy a little bit deeper in there. Sean Welsh is another guy Iowa tends to churn out pretty good offensive lineman, and I'm a big fan of Ali Marpet moving back to guard. I don't think Welsh, like you draft Welsh and boom, automatically Marpet's going to move back to guard, but Welsh is a guy who can come in and at least provide depth as an offensive lineman, if anything else, in his rookie season, and potentially develop into something else. Dante Jackson's another guy that I really like a lot, and I like LSU defenders just in general, especially like this generation of LSU defenders. Like the Tigers have just been pushing out all pro talent on defense just for years now, and I think Dante Jackson's another guy that's going to be one of those. And then another LSU guy. I'm not an LSU fan, I swear. You can see my Ohio State helmet in the background.
Get that out of
here. DJ Chark. Like, I know wide receiver is not a big need for the Buccaneers. Maybe it's not even a need at all. But DJ is so like that. Like he's my guy. You know what I mean? Like I have a feeling about DJ. Like he could be this year's Juju. You know what I mean? Like he could be this year's guy right there. And I love Adam Humphries. Obviously, I want the Buccaneers to bring back Mike Evans. I love what Chris Godwin's bringing to the table. So it's like, where do you fit DJ in if you draft him? And you're going to have to draft him probably day 2. So it's like, is he really going to be worth a pick? But I just, as much as it doesn't make sense for the Buccaneers to draft a wide receiver in like round 3, I love the kid. I love what he brings to the table. And I think that if the Buccaneers did bring him in immediately, he's going to provide some special teams help. And maybe if you have a 3-wide set where you need 15, 16 yards, you can bring him in there instead of Humph. Not calling for him to be benched by any means, but Adam Humphries is not going to get you 15, 16 yards on most pass routes or most of his routes, right? We all kind of know that. But DJ is a guy who you put him in there with Mike Evans and Deshaun Jackson or, Chris Godwin, depending on what's happening. He's a guy who could theoretically maybe take advantage of a seam or take advantage of a hole in the defense and turn it into a first down. And if not, then 2019, if we move on from Deshaun Jackson or he retires or, whatever his plans are, 1920, you're setting up your wide receiver stable for the future. So again, if it were to happen, a lot of people would be a little confused by it, unhappy, luxury pick, whatever. But he's just a guy that I love to watch. So yeah.
Sweet. James.
Full disclosure, I actually did not watch much of the combine as it was happening, but what I did do was I tried to catch up on as many of the interviews and press conferences as I possibly could. And the one guy that really, really stood out to me, and it's a name that's been linked to the Bucs quite a bit at number 7, was Quentin Nelson. Man, his attitude towards football is quite possibly the greatest thing I've ever heard. Like, as soon as I heard him talk, and basically, I don't know the exact quote, but something to the effect of, when he sets foot on a football field, all he wants to do is beat his opponent down so much they lose the will to play. And I'm like, that is what I want in an offensive lineman. Give me this guy all day long.
Yeah.
I would love that in a defensive lineman. I mean, just what you just said. That would be perfect.
Yeah, and that's the kind of attitude that I would love to see. As you said, I'd love it on the defensive line too. But Nick, Bradley Chubb didn't say it. Quentin Nelson did, and chances are Chubb isn't going to be there at 7. But to hear him with that kind of attitude, and to come out and say that he got this tough and he got this way by being the youngest of 32 nieces and nephews. Like, he had to fight his way to the top, and that's why he is the way he is. And Rick Stroud was playing quite a bit of it on his podcast, and it was just, for those that didn't catch Nelson's interviews or press conferences, I highly recommend you go back and you check out the episode that Rick Stroud posted of his, because he's got almost the full thing. He's got it with Minka Fitzpatrick as well. But man, I right then and there, I was like, I will buy a authentic Quentin Nelson jersey if he's the guy, after hearing him say he wants to beat his opponents to the point that they have no will to play.
Plus, who you got?
Yeah, I mean, Quentin Nelson is my guy. I mean, he's number 1 player on my board. I think he's the best player in this draft. If the Bucs have a chance to take him at 7, I think he's automatically the pick. I think he's that damn good. Like James says, I mean, he wants to dominate his guys into submission pretty much. I mean, he's just a great player. I mean, he has everything: technique, power, mobility, athleticism, everything you look for in a guard, and might be one of the better guards coming out in a while. And he's probably better than Zach Martin, and that's quite an accomplishment coming out of college. So, guy's just a man-child, and he's going to continue to get better. I was very impressed with him as well, and Marcus Davenport is the guy I was impressed with. I just love his athleticism. He's still very raw, you could see it in the drill, still a little raw, but he's got a lot of potential. Guy that could be a potential pick for the Bucs at 7. Another guy that I loved was Harold Landry. Again, athleticism that can just explodes off the tape and really understands how to rush the passer. So I like him. Trying to think of other guys. And last one, Nick Chubb. I think I was very impressed with him. Just the ability to run a 4.5 at his size. Very impressive and pretty underrated, I think. I think he gets outshined by Sony Michel. I know that's the big hype around him, but Nick Chubb is still a great running back, and I think he's going to be a steal for somebody in this draft.
Yeah, and guys, I wanted to ask you and see if you've had a chance to watch him. The guy out of Miami, Chad Thomas. In later rounds, I'm talking about maybe 4th, 5th round, something like that.
Right.
What do you think about him? Do you think that he's a guy that his skill set translates to the NFL?
I think so, and I think he could be a day 3 steal. He was someone that I talked about. I actually wrote when we were doing our 40 teams in 40 days, and we focused on 40 different colleges. I wrote about Miami, and he was one of my players to watch that could benefit the Bucs. Yeah, he's raw. Yeah. He's gonna need work. He's gonna need time to develop, but his natural athleticism is ridiculous. So that's because
I watched him in the bowl game and just where his hand placement, and it's just natural, just the way he was doing things. I was like, wow, this guy's good. He just needs to get. I think he just needs to get coached up. I felt like this guy's skill set could translate to the NFL definitely. For sure, yeah, and he might be one of those guys that's available with one of the 2 6th-round picks that the Bucs have, and could turn into a legit contributing starter on the football team. So I like him a lot. There's quite a few guys from Miami that I like that aren't getting too much hype because they're projects. They're developmental guys that are going to be backups and rotational for the first 2 to 3 years of their career. But Thomas is he's a special kind of athlete. I think he'd look real nice in a Bucs uni. All right. So guys, we're getting close to. I know you guys are. It's late there and everything. We're getting close to the end, but I couple more questions for you.
Yeah.
What do the Bucs do from here? I mean, we looked at the 2017 season, 5-win season. I know there were injuries, and I'm not using that as an excuse. Couldn't stop the run. Didn't look like the same team that you saw from 2016. And I do realize, as you mentioned before, you looked at the film and the wins weren't what the wins should have been. And, as I'm looking at this team, how do they improve from here? Are they as bad as what people are? You listen to social media. We're all in social media. Is this team as bad as what people are making them out to be in social media? And Mike, I'll start with you.
I don't think so. I mean, I look at last year. I think a lot of things happened. You obviously had the hurricane. You had injuries. Play calling. Just a lot of inconsistencies. Quarterback play. Your quarterback got hurt. During the season. Offensive line inconsistency. Just a lot of things that just didn't go right for this team. And you lost a lot of close games. I mean, 3-7 and 1-score games. I think the team was talented last year, and that's without making any additions coming this offseason. I think, again, they just need some more depth. You got to continue to build that core players, as far as through the draft, and making sure the guys you have on the roster now are continuing to get better. You need Jameis to take that next step. You need Mike Evans. Defensive players need to take that next step, and Noah Spence and Vernon Hargraves, like I mentioned earlier, and guys just being more consistent. And that comes, it comes with time. And I think this team has the chance to rebound. And again, I don't think they're as bad as they were last year. I think they have a pretty good, talented team.
Yeah. And James, you want to get your thoughts as well?
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think they're, the old adage, you are what your record says you are. I don't think they're as bad as a 5-11 team. I don't think they were as good as we all thought they were on paper heading into the season, but I definitely don't think that they're that far away. They have some serious holes that need to be addressed in the trenches and in the back end of the defense. But I mean, by and large, this team, as frustrating as they were competitive in just about every game. As Michael pointed out, 3-7 in 1-score games. You have one ball that bounces their way here, and a drop pass that doesn't get dropped there. And if you flip flop that, and don't even flip flop it. Give them 5 and 5. We're talking about, a totally different thing. If you do flip-flop it, you're talking about they're in the playoffs and Atlanta's not. So, I mean, they're close. They're real close, and I know it's something that Bucs fans are sick of hearing. They're sick of hearing, you need to wait, you need to be patient, give them time. We've been saying that for 15 years. It's old, but it's the truth. Yeah. They're so close, so close. Yeah, one or two of the right moves, and they're right there.
I want to jump in there what you're talking about here. When we look at the hits that they've gotten on draft picks, I mean, just look at last year alone. When you get OJ Howard, you got Justin Evans, and you got Kendall Beckwith, and yes. Those are guys that none of us. You can't sit here and tell me you expected any of those three guys to come in immediately and make a difference, and they were able to come in and they played well. And it's exciting to see the upside on, some of these players. And I feel like, again, I'm very comfortable with Jason Light going into the draft. I think that he has an idea of what he wants to do. And again, I'm just going to sit back until week 6 and, let's see what happens. I want to see how this all unfolds. I can't get stressed out about, we didn't get this guy or we didn't get this guy. And I guess the one thing that kind of frustrates me, a lot of people are talking about Michael Bennett, but nobody's talking about the Seahawks wanted Chris Godwin in that trade. Nobody's talking about that. I think, to be honest, the Seahawks need to go. They can all go and smoke some more weed if they think the Bucs are going to give up, Chris Godwin, a guy that's his ceiling is just amazing.
He's the future number 2, yes, period.
Absolutely. And if you really believe that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were going to even entertain the idea of giving up Chris Godwin and a draft pick for Michael Bennett, come on. That's not even realistic. So, that's, I just wanted to interject that in there. And Dave, I wanted to get your thoughts as well. I don't mean to keep cutting you off, but just kind of have to do that here.
No, yeah, I mean, to echo your sentiment, I don't know, had Jason Light traded Chris Godwin to the Seahawks for Michael Bennett, I might have jumped on the fire light train.
There would have been.
I'm not gonna lie.
There would have been a mutiny at $1 Buc Plays. Trust me.
Oh, it got the real ugly.
I tweeted out fire Jason Light right now. Actually, I put out a bolo for Jason Light because he's been kidnapped and someone is pretending to be him making deals for the Seahawks.
You'd see a ship and some cannons right out in front of $1 Buc because they'd be fired. They'd be lobbing cannons over that bad boy.
Yeah, that's craziness. But I mean, kudos to the Seahawks for being creative. I mean, whatever outside the box thinking, right? Yeah. No, I mean the Buccaneers aren't as bad as it seems on social media, and I think it's just when we talked about this a little bit last year, right? When you look at the New York Jets, right? And New York Jets fans, James and I are really good friends with Alan Schechter, who writes for the Empire Writes Back on Fanside, covering all New York sports, but he's a diehard Jets fan. They won 6 games last year, right? I think the Jets won 6 games last year. And Jets fans were elated. They were like, oh, man, this is amazing. What a great season. Da, da, da. Because everybody going into the draft and coming out of the draft essentially was like, okay, the Jets are tanking. Got it. They're shooting for the number 1 pick next year. And so they come out with 6 wins, and they're elated. They're like, oh, man, the future is bright, and the grass is green in New York, and, the Jets are the best thing in New York City, and so on and so forth. Then you look at Buccaneers fans with 5 wins, and it's like the castle's burning down all around us all. It's expectation, and we all wanted to crucify Tom Jones last year when he said pump the brakes on the hype train. He was right, and I don't think he gets enough credit for being right in that aspect. But it's all about expectations, right? So the team is not as bad as everybody is feeling right now, and the reason that I think the fan base feels that way is because of how high the hype really grew. At one point during the offseason last year and in the early part of the year as well. But what concerns me isn't necessarily the talent level on the roster. I think there's plenty of talent on the team, which is why they're in kind of the future cap situation they're in, because there's a lot of players they need to re-sign for what's probably going to be a lot of money, which means you have a lot of talent. What they don't have is enough diversification of that talent, and they don't have enough depth behind that talent, because if you take away the wide receivers and the linebackers, this team really doesn't have a lot of talent outside of that. Justin Evans looks like a great future guy. Ali Marpet's great on the offensive line. Gerald McCoy's great. But beyond those guys, and obviously Jameis, the cupboards get a little bit bare if you wipe out the wide receivers and the linebackers. And that's what I'm talking about, with diversification. Instead of having great players across the board at 2 position groups, they need to find a way to get really good players at 4 or 5 position groups. And Justin Evans could definitely become that guy. But I think cornerback, defensive line, pass rush, specifically, and running back, like those are the 3 areas the Buccaneers need to find help. And I think 2 of those 3 areas, they find a day 1 starter in 2 of those 3 areas. Then I think they'll be okay. I'm not going to predict the Super Bowl win, but I think that they'll kind of pay off on some of the hype from last year, become more competitive, get into the NFC South race again. And I'm not going to predict a division win or anything, or a crown, or anything like that. But what we're going to see, if they can do that, if they can pull that off and get 2 out of 3 starters in those three areas, we'll see a team that was more like what we expected in 2017.
Yeah. And plus, we get you? You get?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah, like I said earlier, I don't think they're as bad. I think it's really all on Jameis. I think if Jameis takes that next step, I mean, he's going to do a lot. And I think, like the other guy said, just add a little pieces here and there, build your core up a little bit. I think this team will be just fine.
Yeah, and to me, the running game is the one thing that's we've kind of we haven't really touched on a whole lot. I think that's going to be huge for this offense is getting that running game going. And if you can get a pass rush going, if you can get the right guys in there and get that pass rush going, I think that, this team will win games that you wouldn't think they would win. I keep hearing people talk about how tough the schedule is. The schedule was supposed to be tough in 2016. So you got to go out there and play those games, and you got to go out there and win those games. And that's what it's going to take. Fortunately for us, the Bucs, we don't have to worry about hard knocks or any of that other stuff. I think that there is a lot less expectations for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think this is going to put them in a position to where they can go in and be comfortable and get back to what they were doing when they were playing as a team. And I think it's going to be important that communication factor that we didn't see last year. It's like it was lost from the back end of 2016, but it just didn't seem like there was a lot of communication, a lot of trust back there and on that defense. So a lot of things that they need to fix, more mental, more coaching than anything. And I think this team can be a lot better than what we saw last year.
Amen.
Yeah, and again, you got a lot of people that are doom and gloom, but I'm of the mindset, hey, why not the Bucs? There's so much parity in the NFL. I mean, you look at the Philadelphia Eagles is a prime example. Nobody picked the Eagles to go to the playoffs even. And you look at what they turned around and did. So again, you kind of have to wait and see what this team is going to do, what they're going to build up, and what product they're going to put on the field before you can even say that. And again, I'm gonna take the optimistic road here. Probably one of the minority that will do that. But I think that this team is going to surprise a lot of people.
All right.
But anyway, what I wanted to do here with the last few minutes here, David, I'm going to start with you. I wanted to see what you guys are actually working on and, what you have going on in the future. So, and tell everybody how they can get a hold of you. And then, James, I'll go down the road and we'll do this.
Right on.
Right. So, right now, we're finishing up our free agent preview over at the Peter Plank. We've got some more guys that we're focusing on, not really from a this is who the team should sign standpoint, but more just kind of giving our readers kind of a view of what certain guys on the market have done in their career, how they might fit in Tampa, and whether or not we feel like the Bucs should sign them. Our writers have been doing a great job with their profiles over there, and it's been a really fun time. And then the Locked On Bucs podcast. I mean, we're turning out 2 episodes a week. Currently during the off season, we'll get back to our everyday format once the season picks up. We've got some draft stuff coming that I'll let James hit up on, because we've got some exciting stuff coming, including some special guests that we're going to have on. Hopefully we can get you guys on there as well.
Yeah, I love that.
And do that up. I'm not quite used to the video format, so I keep looking away from the camera.
Yeah,
it's all good, man. It's all good.
But yeah, just good things on there. Of course on Twitter. DH82_Bucs. I'm always down to talk football, Buccaneers football, any football. I just love football or anything else except for politics. I'm not touching politics on social media. And then also the Locked On Bucs Twitter account, I man that. So if you want to talk trash or hit me up on there, as well. It's all love though. I'm not.
Yeah.
If you start getting serious with it, I'm just gonna stop responding to you because it's all love. It's all fun. So
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And before I jump on here, you guys got to check out the podcast, Locked on Bucks. Great content. I enjoy it. You know, when I'm at work, I'm fortunate enough that I can listen to my headphones, and I definitely check you guys out. And that's why I said I was very happy that you guys agreed to come on the show, and you guys have a open invitation to come on anytime. And James, I want to go ahead and jump over to you.
Oh yeah, well, and thank you for the kind words. Really appreciate the support and the compliment there. And yeah, like David said, we're wrapping up the free agency spotlights, and come draft, man. Of course, we'll have coverage of free agency when that starts popping off, and we do have a few guests lined up. I don't want to drop any names yet, just in case anything comes up. I don't want to make any promises that we can't come through on, but we do have a pretty big guest coming up for the Friday episode next week, when we'll be about 48 hours into free agency. And then our draft coverage, man, I will put our draft coverage up against anyone's. Last year, we got ourselves a nice little system down, and for every pick we have 3, 4, even 5 articles about each particular player. One of our writers, Bailey Adams, he did profiles on all the Bucks draft picks and was really diving in. I know. I can't remember off the top of my head which writer it was. I want to say it was Jenna Lane. You know, got credit for the story about how Kendall Beckwith worked with horses and was a horse farmer. Bailey had that the day before. Like, he really, really dove in. And anything you want to know about these guys, he ends up having it. But we'll have social media reaction. We're going to have how they're going to help the Buccaneers. We're going to, anything about any of the draft picks, we will have at thepewterplank.com. And, of course, the Locked On Bucks podcast. As David said, as we get closer to the season, we'll pick up on the episodes. Might do a couple bonus episodes here if major things happen in free agency. And of course, the draft coverage we'll have that covered over there at the podcast too. You can find me on Twitter at @JYarko_Bucks, and I'm the poor sad sap that runs the Pewter Plank Twitter account at the Pewter Plank. So don't be like Swaggy Baker and give me the finger, please.
All right, Michael Pless.
I mean, pretty much same thing over at Real Bucks Talk. Be free agency and draft, more profiles, player profiles, just thoughts and opinions of what I think the Bucks are going to do. We'll have film breakdowns on our YouTube channel as well of certain players that we like that, think we fit, this team, and more stuff. And it's going to be exciting next week. A lot of stuff's going to be going down. So, follow us on Twitter at Real Bucks Talk, and definitely follow Pewter Plank as well. I love those guys. So you guys do a great job, and I mean, it's fun. It's just starting. So excited.
And guys, again, I want to give a big thanks to the Pewter Plank. Thank you guys for coming out. For me, there's no competition. We're all wanting the same thing. We want to see that Lombardi Trophy back here in Tampa, and that's why I invited you guys on, because I want to promote your show too, because you guys do a great job. You guys have great content, and that's what I look for, is great content. I've totally gotten away from things like Fox Sports, ESPN. I want to listen to you guys. I want to listen to somebody that will respond back to me, and we can interact on, even on social media. I'm pretty much done with the people that are bigger than me, and they don't have time to respond to me or respond to some of the other, listeners, or, other just people on social media. Those are the people that make you who you are. So to me, getting to have you guys on, it's not competition. You guys are great, and I appreciate you. And if I can get you guys on again between now and after free agency, I'm definitely looking at getting you guys back on here to get your thoughts on what the Bucks were able to accomplish. I think that's going to be huge, because right now we're in a dark space where everybody's jumping out the window, and we're going to go 1-15, or something. It's not like that. I promise you, this team will not be a 5-win team next year. I can promise you, I'm saying that right now, before any moves have been made, for any draft picks have been made, this team will not be a 5-win team. They will be better than that next year. Trust me.
I like it.
Trust me. And I'm saying that just based on what I've seen, just based on the game film that I've watched, and just seeing players that are coming back healthy. And I don't even know who they're bringing in, but I can tell you right now that this team will be better than what the product that you saw in 2017.
Heck yeah, I'm with you.
So, so again, guys, thank you so much, Michael Pless, as usual. Thank you. And when you guys want us on, just let us know, and I'll be happy to. I don't want to speak for Michael, but I'll be happy to come on. I know he would. If we can get it all worked out, that's definitely something we like to do, because we appreciate what you guys are doing. But that's pretty much it for us. And guys, I'm sorry I didn't really get a whole lot of questions out of the chat because had a lot of different topics that we wanted to cover tonight, and I think we hit on everything, and I appreciate that. So we're going to go ahead and get out of here. And I want to thank everybody again for checking us out at the special time, and look for us next week. We'll have another show, and we'll have a little bit more content. We'll have a special guest on next week, so be sure to look for that. Oh, and one thing I did want to mention, first Tuesday of every month, we will be on the radio, Tan Talk Radio out of Clearwater.
Nice.
We will be on. I will be on, and anybody is welcome to call in. I will have guests. Maybe you guys can call in or something, but that's just once every Tuesday, every first Tuesday. It's going to be me and Michael Pless, Buc What You Heard on Tan Talk Sports Network. So I'll look for that, and I'll give a little bit more information as we get closer to that. But that's it for us. Everybody have a good night. Peace.